This was the largest oyster research farm in the Gulf of Mexico until the oil spill. It is located in Grand Isle, one of the coastal areas most affected by the spill. The research was aimed at breeding oysters that would remain fat through the summer. But because of the spill, the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Marine Fisheries and Louisiana State University were forced to move most of the oysters about 500 kilometers away. Louisiana State University professor John Supan directs the research.
Well, we had about over 2,000 oysters deployed in our farm, and these are the result of over 10 years worth of research. And we moved the oysters to Rockefeller Refuge. We are just at the point where the research results are about to be commercialized.
Oil has not been sighted at the research farm yet. A few weeks after the spill, BP placed booms around it in a bid to protect the facility. But researchers were concerned about water contamination.
I've always been more concerned about the invisible of this spill than the visible portions of the spill.
John LePere and Sandra Casas also work at the research farm. They collected some of the oysters that were left behind, checked on their health, and removed offspring that didn't belong in the study. Supan says traditionally oysters get fat in the winter, but after they spawn, they lose much of their weight. The researchers found a way to keep the oysters fat in the summer.
124.2.
We have a breeding program that will result in oysters that have a higher meat yield in the summertime.
This oyster is only 2 years old, but it's the size of a 4-year-old. Supan says oysters that stay fat through the summer could be an economic boon for local fisheries.
You can produce an oyster that has a high meat yield in the summer where traditionally you can't do that.
The research project is mostly on hold now, and so is Louisiana's oyster industry, the largest in the Gulf.
On the average, Louisiana produces about 12 million pounds of shucked oyster meat a year. About 60% of our production is closed because of the threat of oil.
At LSU's campus in Baton Rouge, Professor Julie Anderson is a fisheries specialist. She is pessimistic about the long-term outcome for the region's marine life.
Most of the fish, shrimp, blue crabs are all spawning out in the Gulf right now. And any of those really small larval fish and crabs are probably going to be killed off if they encounter the actual oil spill. So it could be a couple years before we actually see the true impacts of the oil spill.
For the last 200 years, neither overfishing, illness, or climate change stopped the oyster industry in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, the oil spill may. For producer Zulima Palacio, this is Francis Alonzo, VOA News.